this Torah portion, which is Bamidbar. I think we'll read, let us read just the first 4 verses of the first chapter. We'll read chapter 1, verses 1 through 4.
It says, And Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai in the 10th appointment on the first day to the second new moon, in the second year after they had come out of the land of Mitzrayim, saying, Take the census of all the congregations of the children of Israel by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, every male, head by head, from 20 years old and above, everyone going out to the army in Israel. Number them by their divisions, you and Aaron. And a man from every tribe should be with you, each one the head of his tribe. The head of his father's house.
Okay, very good. So, where we are here, the last book that we were looking at, Leviticus, Vayikra, ended with giving us words that were given to Moses in the mountain. It said, the Most High spoke to Moses in the mountain and said this and so. The Most High told Moshe while he was up in the mountain with the Almighty, all of the various things that we saw, at least leading out of the book. But here in Numbers, Bamidbar, we see that it begins where it says, in the wilderness. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the wilderness, Bamidbar. So, these are the things that we see will take place, for them will take place, getting ready to take place in the wilderness. He's talking, the Most High speaks to Moses to talk to the people on how they are to be living, moving forward towards the promise. So I want to look at briefly here in the first verse. Let's look at there where it says in the wilderness. Put that word up there. Well, I think the thing is that if you look that up there, what's that say there? Oh, okay, good.
Midbar.
Midbar, perfect. I was gonna give you the root. All right, put that up there. Midbar, Bamidbar in Midbar in the wilderness. That word there is in the sense of driving a pasture. You think about a pasture, it's like a place where the animals, where they feed. You have to move the animals along the pasture. They eat someplace right there, and then they eat all that up, and then you got to move them over. This is all theoretical, by the way. I've never been a farmer. So they say that you move them over to this other place and let them eat right there, and eat that up, and then you move them. So when you think about this word here, Midbar, it has that sense of driving a pasture, right? And so even if we look right there on the Strong's, it says that it's from this other word, it says there 1696, which is Debar. Pull that word up there, Debar. 1696, Debar is to arrange, right? used figuratively of words to speak, command, pronounce, say. Dabar, this word here, dabar, to arrange, is basically exactly the same as another word, dabar, which is a word, right? It's a matter, right? It's a thing. So if you have a collection of words, you're speaking, right? Right? Something that you have said, you worded it, right? You manifested some words.
You arrange the words in a way.
Yes, in a particular manner, to where they made, hopefully, they made sense. Sometimes I guess you can put words together and it don't make any sense. But the idea is of the words being placed together. Here, do this. Pull up, look at the ancient, just so that we can see the pictures there, so I don't have to draw anything. For Dabar. Just so we can see the pictures there. Okay, very good. See if you can make that bigger there. Pull that across there so we can look at those.
Oh, my bad. I switched it to the bar.
That's what you want, the bar.
Yes.
Oh,
That's what you want.
Okay, that's good there. Can we see those letters there right there?
Highlight the ancient ones.
Yes. So we're looking at the ancient there. If we look, put the cursor there on the dalet. Yes, so the dalet here. Put the cursor on the regular dalet and then kind of go back and forth and say. Okay, right next to it. Right next to the ancient is the regular, and the dalet is kind of that line that goes over with the thing that sticks down, right? And so the ancient is that little door flap thing there. That's a door flap. It's a tent opening, right? And so it has the idea of movement. It has the idea of going in and out, going in one way or the other, and the thing that kind of regulates the going in and out, which is the door flap, right? And then right next to it, the bait is the plan of the house. It's the blueprints. And so if I want to know about the things that are going on in the house, if I want to see how it's laid out, if I want the plan, if I want everything to know where everything is, I look at the floor plan, and that's what we have there with the bait. And then next to that, you have the resh, which is the head of the man. It's the head of a man. And so when you think about the head of a man, you know, there's things that come out of that head, which they probably start in his mind, but they come out, right? And so that word there, the bar, which we understand to be word, is the movement of the plan out of the head or the mind of the man, right? And that's a word. So a word is a word, you know, somehow, whether I'm consciously thinking about it or unconsciously thinking about it, there's something that's going on inside of my mind. There's a plan in there, and then it comes out of my mouth, right? And so Bamidbar, which is the word that we think about in terms of this driving pasture, or in the scripture is the wilderness. Now, it took that word, that plan that has been put into action through speech, and then it adds the mem to it, which is water, which is also chaos, which is also blood. Blood is life. So it could be life out there in the wilderness, but there could also be chaos. There could be death. When you think about blood, maybe it's the blood that's in you, but if somebody let blood out of you, they're trying to kill you. So there's circumstances and situations out there in the wilderness, right? And so this wilderness, when we think about the wilderness, it represents all that is and that can be in this life, this wilderness, right? But it's not the destination. They didn't leave Egypt to go to the wilderness. They left Egypt to go to the promise. It just happened that the promise was on the other side of the wilderness, right? And so it had to go through these various purposes. Purpose is a word that you can connect to Debar. But to get from Egypt to the promise, you had to go through various questions. Questions is another word that could be, Debar could be translated into. There's tests. There's tests out there, right? There's reasons out there in the wilderness. There's all types of things that are going. There's disease, which is another word that could be connected to Debar. There's death. There's all kinds of things that are connected to thing, right? Debar is a thing. There's all types of things over there in the wilderness, but that's only just the destination. It's only the path to the destination. It's not the end of the road. And so, they've at this point, they've created the tabernacle, the dwelling place for the Most High. They have really a structure in place for the workings of the tabernacle, which is really the central part of the working of the people. And now it's just about continuing on with their journey. And so it's interesting when we see over here in the beginning parts of Numbers where the Most High calls for them to number the people, count the people up, because as they're going through the wilderness, there might be some things that are going to try to come against you, things being people, and you might have to fight. And so it's interesting that the Most High tells Moses to count the people. I thought it was interesting because when you think about this, you wonder, we know why he's doing it, to understand what you have in the battle. But when you think about the fact that the Most High talks to the people and tells them basically, you're going against all of these nations that are greater than yourself, what difference does it make how many people there are there if the Most High is really fighting the battle anyway? What difference does it make? Why does he go through this idea of having these people count? Because when you think about this nation that's walking through the desert, and they'll end up facing these nations that are greater than them, greater in terms of number. So if anything, they're going to look at themselves and say how small they are in relation to the places that the people and places that they're going past. So I'm just wondering, how is this helpful for Israel to know?
How many people?
I mean, we look at it, when you count them all up, it ends up being, I think, about 600 or so thousand people. Which that's a lot of people. I'll say this all the time. We go to the Steeler game, the max capacity is like in the 70,000s or something like that. And it seems like it's just an endless sea of people. But that's 600,000 people, which is a lot of people. But when you're dealing with these other nations who have these fortified places and have been in these places for generations, it's a lot of people, right?
I just think that's because, just like you said, these was people that were counting 20 and up. And those was the people that aren't going to make it through to the end.
So what? Say that again?
They're not going to make it through the wilderness,
They're not going to make it through the wilderness.
Only two.
Well, at this point, right, we didn't get to the spies yet, right?
But I'm saying that they just didn't make it through the wilderness.
They did make it through the wilderness. But at this point, they don't really know that they're not going to make it through the wilderness. But what I'm saying is that for them to count themselves, is it a thing where they're able to look at themselves and see how large they are? Or is it something to let them see how small they are? You think how small they are. Which isn't a motivator, it's not a motivator. For me to see how little I am compared to the people around me, probably going to cause me fear. And this is just people who have potential to fight. They're not warriors. These are people who technically should be able, in a right situation, when trained, to fight. But when was they trained? They're not trained to fight. They're trained to dig holes and build things, make bricks, stomp on things. Maybe their legs are very strong. But they're not warriors.
Right.
And so they're counting, they're told to count, they're told to get these heads of these clans and tribes to go and get a head count for war for the people that's 20 and up. We think about the idea here, at least, it don't say 60, but we kind of put that into it because when we think about the price that goes in, you have that kind of for the same price for 20 up to 60. But here it just says 20 and up. We know that it's not an endless amount. We don't have the 100-year-olds necessarily out there fighting necessarily. But I'm saying all that just to say, when we look at, or just to think about the why, for whose sake is it? I wonder. I mean, for one thing, they could potentially be able to think about the fact that if they were understanding about who they were and their lineage in terms of coming from Abraham, Abraham was given a promise to the Most High, and part of that promise involved lots of people. And so if nothing else, they had a kind of a solid foundation to lots of people as they were going to the promised land, the other part of the thing that the Most High promised to the people. And so they had some things that I think that they're able to kind of think about and kind of cause those things to be positive things that they were thinking about. in the counting of themselves and understanding, if you was to say they were counting themselves and realizing, comparatively speaking, how they compare to the nations around them, it could cause them to lean more onto the Most High. Understanding that, they were a lesser nation to the ones who were oppressing them, Egypt, and they still was able to come out victorious with all of the Egyptians' stuff. Another thing that I was thinking about when I was looking at this is when you look over in verse 1 there, where it says on the first day of the second month, in the second year, they was already in starting year number 2 right now. Like they're really starting to move now. Up to this point, they're building the tabernacle. They're getting all the things together. They're meandering around Mount Sinai. Meandering around Mount Sinai for a whole year. It's the second month. They already had a second Passover already, right? But when you think about the distance between where they were and where they were going, it really wasn't that far. And we didn't even get to the point of them being banished to the wilderness for 40 years. We haven't got to that point yet. Right? And so they're really just kind of, it takes them really a year, I would say, to kind of regroup and gather and establish themselves before they actually take the journey. They haven't even really started the journey at this point. And so, again, it's interesting when we look at this situation here when, it goes into this great lengths. It counts all the people, as I said, the total number. I think it says it if you go down to the end of the chapter. It's about 600,000 people, fightable people. And for me, it really, in light of the things that the Most High says in terms of later, the things that he says in terms of the people facing these other nations that are greater than them, for me, all this count does is causes us really to look back at the Most High, because again, it don't really matter how many people that they have when they're facing armies. These are workers. These are people that, these aren't warriors, right? And so it causes them, I would think, to still have to look at the Most High and understand that he is faithful to the promise that he made to Abraham. I think he gives them kind of a glimmer of hope in just the fact of them being able to look at themselves and see the beginnings of this sands of the sea that is talked about as the blessing to Abraham as they walk to the promised land.
Yeah.